We have to show how vulnerable the oil industry is by hitting something big.
Michael, what do you think the odds are we blow ourselves up?
I don't really care.
That's a bold tactic.
Welcome to Cordkillers, the show about watching the stuff you love when you want, where you want, however you want. I'm Tom Merritt. I don't really care.
Whoa. Tom, I'm here. I know I've broken my promises twice in a row. I'm here. It's happening.
Brian.
We're doing the show.
Oh my gosh, Brian's back. I don't have to blow up the cord-killing pipeline anymore.
Yes. Also, it says that it's a upcoming crime film. This is a true crime thing, Bryce? Question mark.
Great question. It's certainly called "How to Blow Up a Pipeline." It is coming to Hulu. August 24th. You actually might have, this has been making the film festival circuit. So I think you can even go and rent this on VOD before it comes to Hulu.
It's a how-to? It's like an instructional video?
Oh, yeah. They just, it's a lot of hands and a lot of step. No, I think this is based off of a book.
I just felt like a full body shudder after dealing with, like, as YouTube gets smarter and begins to understand the words that we're saying and it keeps denying certain episodes from being released. I'm just like, no, this is hypothetically how, oh dear.
This is a fictional movie film about the pipe. Yeah.
But
well, you know who's not fictional, Brian?
I mean, there's me, there's you, there's Bryce. Who else is there?
Sure. Naim's here. Welcome back, Naaim.
Naaim Siddiqi, aka
Hey, thank you for having me. Glad to be back.
You aren't fictional, correct?
I am pretty sure I'm not. I'm not sure any of us isn't fictional, but
that's
fairly as certain as I can be that I'm not fictional.
Well, yeah, if you're fictional, we're all fictional. So we're all in the same boat, as Nick Bostrom once said. This is a boat, and it's probably being simulated. So let's move on to the primary target. That's what he said. Nielsen reported that in July, the share of TV viewing from broadcast and cable dropped below 50%. This probably made your local news. They still outnumber streaming combined, though. So you're getting a lot of hair on fire headlines about this. But as a Cordkiller listener, you're probably not surprised because we've been keeping you up to date on this exact trend from this exact source, the gauge from Nielsen. Here's where we stand. Streaming now leads the way definitively with 38.7% of viewing. It's not the first month that it has, but it's getting bigger. Cable is second with 29.6%, and broadcast is 20%. So traditional TV still leads when you combine those two. Broadcast and cable are 49.6%. Streaming is 38.7%. Other is 11.6%. So here's where we're going to keep you ahead of the pack in understanding all this. Nielsen says other is unmeasured video on demand, which is probably mostly video you purchase and watch on your own, not through a streaming service. Audio streaming, which is listening to music or podcasts like Spotify, but on a television, and then Blu-ray and DVD. And finally, most intriguing, video gaming. Nielsen says video gaming is part of this. So mostly consoles, since it's on a TV, but I wonder exactly how that's defined and whether this other category might start to get larger in the future with Netflix and other cloud services getting into gaming. Now, back to the streaming services. Streaming services dominated viewing aren't significantly changed. YouTube is at the top, 9.1%. Netflix, 8.5%. Then the rest, below 5%, are Hulu, Amazon Prime Video, and Disney Plus. In the 1% to 2% range are Max, Tubi, Peacock, Roku Channel, Paramount Plus, and Pluto TV, in that order. The most streamed titles were Suits on Netflix and Peacock, and Bluey on Disney Plus. Suits had 18 billion minutes, equaling Stranger Things 18 billion from last year.
So we're not talking these are assumptions I'm making, and please, please, everybody understand that this is just Brian trying to understand the general shape of things. I'm assuming we're talking about viewer minutes, which means if 3 people, for example, let's say somebody's sharing something on a Discord server, it would count the 3 people who are watching, and it would count each minute 3 times. It is, I assume that it's not weighting heavily for higher bandwidth options. For example, if something is streamed in 4K to one person for 1 minute, then it's going to count the same as, 320, 360p or whatever for one person.
Don't think resolution affects it. I think that's right.
Right,
that's
right.
A fair assumption.
The mere fact that there are so many different ways, like, for example, did I experience The Last of Us twice by playing it once and then watching somebody else play it on YouTube and then watching it a third time when I saw the HBO version of it? It's the categories are getting, to my mind, delightfully
you did.
mushy.
Right, because that's that. If I watched Mission Impossible 3 times, then I watched Mission Impossible 3 times, right? So those numbers should count for 3 different viewings of it. So I think 4 times actually. But I think what's obviously interesting here is the cable number going down and the other numbers going up. But that slice that Tom mentioned, the other slice of such various things of basically it wasn't a streaming service. It was any other thing you can do with your television, whether that's plugging in your computer and playing something on Steam, whether it's popping in a Blu-ray, whether it's, there's so many different things there that are so nebulous that I wonder if they're going to start tracking that more soon, because, I think we've talked about on the show many, many times that the younger generation, doesn't really even understand the concept of channels, like the really younger generation, like the kids now, children now. If you tell them to change the channel, they don't really know what a channel is. They just know you are changing what's on the TV.
Well, and it opens up other interesting questions. And again, I'm sure they have the answers for all of this, but there's a local sports and grill dive bar that we go to. There are 70 televisions, and 2 of them are tuned into Atmosphere TV. And Atmosphere TV are the only 2 televisions that my ADD-addled eyes can't take their eyes away from. I wonder how they even get counted in this.
They generally don't count. Nielsen doesn't usually count bar and TV. They do that separately. That's one of the dings on them, is you're skipping a lot of stuff, but they say that they weight it out. So
the concept of Nielsen is so confusing in 2023. Get
statistics, right?
Get those numbers.
To me, Nielsen is future proof, because it's basically, as long as you're good at sampling and estimating, it doesn't really matter where the television is coming from.
So is this a hooray or a boo-nay? The hooray being, hey, we're right. We called this a long time ago, and now the balloon is 50% deflated. That's a milestone. Or is it a boo-nay in that, 10 years ago we said, it looks like that balloon's about to deflate. I don't know whether to be proud or excited or what.
I look at it as a bit of a victory lap for our listeners, because they're not surprised. When they saw all these headlines, they got to feel smug and say, yeah, man, we've been hearing about this for a long time. You're just realizing this. So that's why I think, Kuhan, I think you're right. That other, when that gets big enough that they have to break something out, because that's the way this works. Other streaming of the sources is 5.1%. Pluto used to be in that other streaming. You didn't know what Pluto's number is, but now it got big enough they broke it out. At what point does video games break out? Which would be my guess for the one that would get big enough fast enough. And then they have to have another section of this chart. That's what I'm keeping my eyes out for.
Well, and specifically, we would have to figure out whether or not we're talking about content of watching other people play the video game, as opposed
I think content of watching other people play is in streaming, right? Because that's going to be either
YouTube.
Twitch or YouTube or something.
Or Twitch, yeah. Right. Yeah. So to your question, Brian, when you watched Last of Us on HBO, that counted for Max. When you watched the rewatch on YouTube, that counted for YouTube. When you played the game, that counted for other, 11.6%.
Yeah, seems right. I love that it's only getting more and more confusing at this point, and especially because one of the projects that we keep talking about on the Great Night Project podcast is this emerging league of fun games where we play marbles. All run by Bryce Castillo. Like I assume that's other right now, but is that a sports broadcast? Is that a network broadcast?
That would be Twitch.
I mean, that's Twitch. That like shows up in the streaming bucket because it's on Twitch.
Yeah, so, but we're also in the middle of talking about highlight reels going up on YouTube and so on. At which point, I guess that would be just YouTube. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because right now we're talking about the platforms and not the content. Like we don't like Nielsen. Maybe they're keeping track of video game time, but it's not like they're keeping track of video game titles. They're worried about.
I don't know if they are.
Movies.
One thing interesting to me too is that they split off YouTube and YouTube TV, which makes sense because YouTube TV is like a cable service, but. Like I'm interested in like MLB broadcast games on YouTube, but that is like you're watching live television, so it's not broadcast. It's not same thing with like Peacock and Apple TV. Like Apple TV is the place to watch MLS soccer. That's live TV. I'm watching live TV, but I'm watching it on Apple TV. So like is that something they should be measuring differently?
That counts as minutes that you watch something on Apple TV.
I know that's the way they count it now, but is it the way they should be counting it? Because it is. I am watching live TV. I'm not watching it's streaming, but I'm not watching it.
At what point does streaming get big enough where you're like, this is too big to just lump it all in one category? That's a good point.
Yeah. Well, it's also like I feel like the experience of watching MLS on Apple TV is more similar to watching ESPN on YouTube TV than it is to watching Ted Lasso on Apple TV.
Right. Well, it's all the experience of paying more. As we mark this latest milestone in the march towards streaming, the focus on how much it costs to stream is increasing. Financial Times put out a story about how streaming now costs more than cable. I usually really like the work of the Financial Times, but I've got some nitpicks on this particular article. Financial Times says a basket of the top U.S. streaming services will cost $87 this autumn, compared with $73 a year ago, as Disney, Paramount, Warner Brothers Discovery, and others have raised their prices in response to pressure from Wall Street to end the profligacy of the streaming boom. The average cable TV package, according to Financial Times, costs $83 a month. So, okay, a basket of U.S. streaming services costs $87, and the average cable TV package costs $83. I have a lot of questions. Which streaming services make up the basket? Maybe they put it somewhere, but I couldn't find it. Would most people consider them must-haves to replace cable? It's a little bit apples and oranges. Yes, if you try to buy every streaming service you need to replace every show you might watch on cable, that is a different proposition than what most people do, which is subscribe to the things they think they really want. Does it make a difference that with streaming, you can easily cancel service without losing all your TV? Well, with cable, you're kind of stuck in an all or nothing situation. And I'm very curious about the $83 cost, because I've generally seen that number around $100 or more from other sources. So I wonder if they're counting introductory prices in there, which they could. Brian, what do you think?
I am number one, 100% certain that they're including introductory prices. They're also pretending like you don't get the hard sell on two other services. Now, what those two other services, at one point it was cable, internet, and telephone.
Phone, TV, DSL.
It was home security, internet, and so on.
Now it seems mobile phone is in there a lot.
Yes,
I'm guessing it's also a situation of they're breaking out the the yearly plans for some of these, where you get a discount and then dividing that by 12. Yeah,
that could be. That could explain some of it.
And there is a dollar value to committing yourself for an entire year of payment. We really are at the point where we're at apples and oranges, and it makes no sense to even compare the two.
I'm also interested in the number that says the average cable TV package costs $83 a month. I don't really trust that number. I feel like that's also a little bit higher than 83. Or maybe not, but maybe like just for for me, if I'm getting a cable package, it's to watch sports, and if I'm trying to get sports, I'm paying for the sports premium package.
On top of that you would have to squint and pretend that you're not also getting Netflix or Amazon Prime and so on, which we know everyone is still also getting, except for Bryce.
Yes, that's true.
Except for Bryce. Poor Bryce. You should join us though, Bryce. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the most expensive versions of stuff. Netflix is $15.49, Hulu is $18, so that's $33.49. Max is $16, so that's $49.49. Like Disney Plus is $14, so that's $60. Like I'm still not to $87. I'm wondering what this basket is that they put together.
And that's the ad-free option. That's not even comparable to cable.
Yes.
Right. It's like just flatly
right.
not
you can
even
pay
comparable.
less to get the versions with ads. Exactly.
Yeah.
On top of that, there's my daughter has because she's in university, she has a special rate on Hulu, but it includes ads. And like because of either ad blocking software or what have you, I've tried multiple times to watch Justified on Hulu, and in the moment I hit a roadblock, I'm like, screw it, I'm just going to pay the $3 and I'm just going to buy this. And so I think there's a fair bit of double counting that should be included in there.
Final note here. I briefly mentioned in the Gauge, they called out Suits as being the top show. There has been another Nielsen report specifically on streaming shows separate from the Gauge since that. And Suits topped Nielsen streaming for the 4th consecutive week. Now, they always report later, so this is for the week ending July 23rd, but 3.9 billion minutes across Netflix and Peacock that week.
Yeah, Suits was really being pushed on Netflix. It's been on Peacock for a while, but it was really being pushed on Netflix when they got it, and it was like the number one streamed on Netflix for a while. I guess I kind of get, it's easy watching, and there might be a bit of the Meghan Markle factor, but it is a little interesting that it Suits. And that's something that, by the way, has been, with the strikes going on, that writers have said, like, hey, Suits you're getting 3.9 billion minutes and we're seeing 20 cents. Like, so that's it is interesting when, because that happens.
Do you think that Netflix is actively dunking on the Writers Guild by just running their very profitable properties?
Well, they have to put something up. They still have to have shows. Like they can't not have shows, and they'll have to fill that gap with licenses like this, right?
It does remind me a little bit of many people don't. You guys probably do, but many people don't know the story of how when the Shawshank Redemption first came out, it was a box office disaster. It performed very poorly. So for pennies on the dollar, TBS bought it, and they figured out that, hey, whenever we run this, people seem to dig it. So virtually nobody has sat and watched the entire movie in order, but once they stumble across it on TBS, they're comfortable sticking around. So it ends up being...
Yeah, I think Shawshank Redemption was on KPLR 11 maybe once every other week.
I totally believe
St. Louis.
Nice. Well, folks, I think Naaim really hit it when he said that there's probably an influence of interest in Meghan Markle and Prince Harry in the whole Suits thing, which is why, Brian, I'm committing that if we get 100 new Cordkillers patrons in the next week, we will offer Meghan Markle a co-hosting spot on Cordkillers.
You know what? And if she doesn't take it, I will dress as Meghan Markle, so long as you commit to acting injured and pouty like you were deserving of more in life.
I just don't know, Brian.
Well, there's only one way to find out, and that's for people to head on over to patreon.com/Cordkillers. Keep us loud, live, and independent. Get your own RSS feed, exclusive access to the After Talk segment at the end of the show. I can buy a dress.
Just 100 more patrons, and we will get Meghan Markle an offer to be on Cordkillers.
No, somebody claiming to be Meghan Markle will be on the show if we get 100 new patrons.
And that'll be something to watch. in Under Surveillance.
Not like real estate. It's all about location. Under surveillance.
If you were wondering, okay, YouTube's got Sunday Ticket. What are they going to do that DirecTV didn't? They announced a few more new features to go with your expensive subscription. You'll be able to view a live chat while you're watching games, vote in polls. Real-time highlights will show up on YouTube as shorts for everyone, but if you're a Sunday Ticket subscriber, you'll be able to click on one of those highlights and go right to the live game. Key plays are coming to Sunday Ticket. This is a catch-up service that YouTube TV provides for many of its broadcasts already. Gives you selected highlights from a game before launching you into the live broadcast. There's a version of this on MLB.com that I enjoy for baseball. And finally, most U.S. fans will get the option to pay monthly unless your state prohibits it. That includes Georgia, New York, Minnesota, Nevada, Missouri, Tennessee, or New Jersey. But if you're not in one of those states, you can pay monthly for NFL Sunday Ticket.
This seems like something I want to make fun of, but I don't.
The catch up thing, the key place thing is great. I've used it on YouTube TV before. I think that's awesome. The comments is interesting because the chat, yes. Well, because again, I mentioned they have an MLB broadcast on YouTube, but that's like authorized commenters. It's like, hey, we have like 100 people who we know, some of them are YouTube creators who talk about baseball. Some of them are like official accounts. And these are the people who are chatting. I didn't see anything about something like that for NFL. It seems like it might just be an open chat, probably with like a slow mode of some sort. But I've certainly been on sites that have a live chat next to a sporting event, and it's not a great experience. So it's interesting that they would do that.
Would you be more comfortable if, let's say, there's only two icons? There's, the green team's icon and the red team's icon, and everybody could just spam it, like it's a YouTube live thing. That seems like it would approximate the being there live at an event. Like
fan cheering, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that would be interesting. That'll be an interesting feature to turn on. I would presume I and most people would just turn all of it off to just watch the game. I'm not a big football guy, but as far as sports goes, there's none of those features generally, aside from like the key plays thing and the YouTube Shorts highlights. Like those are okay. That is a value added. Everything else is like all right. Maybe some people will enjoy this. Otherwise, it's I will turn that off and ignore it. Yeah.
YouTube said engage with live chat, enjoy live chat, and the screenshot says subscriber only chat. None of those make it clear if you're actually participating or not. So I'm still unclear on that part.
Well, and from the screenshot, it looks like names of random people, but it could be like they have the MLB
this
thing
much for Sunday Ticket, you'll behave yourself. Maybe that's what they're thinking. I'm not sure. Netflix released a trailer for the Scott Pilgrim animated series. This is the one that has the voices of the actors who played the characters in the live action movie. Coming to Netflix November 17th.
This seems like a good idea. What has it been? Nearly 20 years since the first movie came out?
13. It was 2010.
Yeah.
I'm a big Scott Pilgrim guy. Here's my 5 of my Scott Pilgrim Blu-rays, and here's my vinyl of it. So I'm a big Scott Pilgrim guy. Very, very excited about this. I usually don't watch trailers, but this one came up on TikTok, and I couldn't stop watching it. And I'm not gonna get spoiled on Scott Pilgrim. It's
that trailer wasn't terribly spoilery, actually.
No, it wasn't. No, yeah, I think, but visually it looked really cool. I mean. When this was announced, they announced the whole cast was coming back, but it's great to see the whole cast coming back, including some of the huge stars that were in it, Chris Evans, Brie Larson, Aubrey Plaza, Anna Kendrick, Michael Cera. I mean, people who you could not get for a project like this, if not for the fact that they did this same project 13 years ago. So it looks awesome.
Netflix says it'll bring back Warrior Nun, but not for a third season. It will be a trilogy of movies. Netflix announced in December it wasn't going to make a third season of the show, but fan interest apparently was enough to get them agree to make some movies and wrap up the story.
I actually love this. It's like if I have to choose between season, and then just silence, I would prefer rather to have just a trilogy of somethings like
Something to wrap up the story.
right.
Yeah.
The most awful iteration was Quantum Leap, where they give just giant double middle fingers, like, oh, by the way, Sam Beckett name misspelled, never made it home anyway.
Poochie down on his way to the home
Sorry,
planet.
all.
Yeah.
Peace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Apple TV Plus announced its series The Buccaneers, based on an unfinished Edith Wharton novel, will arrive on November 8th. 3 episodes come then it's weekly until December 13th. The Buccaneers is set in the 1870s about some young American women coming to England and not respecting traditions, probably showing ankles and such. You know the type. Vulgar Americans, Brian.
I mean, to be honest, 1870s, I could think of a couple of contentious issues that Americans might bring to a foreign country as they were in the middle of a civil war. So I hope
It was over by the 1870s. The Civil War ended
sure.
in the 60s.
Yes.
Yeah.
I hope it's they invented
And certainly,
rock
Tom,
music
those
too early.
sensibilities were gone by the 1870s.
Totally fixed. Totally solved.
Everything
Never
was
dealt with them
solved.
again. Yep.
Yeah.
It's true. And England didn't have any
No,
problems.
never had any issues in England.
And Brian, I think you might be onto something that if I were to make a modern series about the 1870s for Apple TV Plus, I might explore some of those issues. Just gonna throw that prediction out there. Fargo comes back to FX November 21st. Season 5 is going to be set in Minnesota and North Dakota in 2019. So we're back to almost the present. They didn't want to deal with COVID, is my guess, in their story. So they plopped it nicely in 2019. And it will follow a character named Dot to be played by Juno Temple, a.k.a. Keeley from Ted Lasso.
Today was the day that I realized that actor's name is Juno Temple.
John Hamm is also, I believe, in this. And then Jennifer Jason Leigh, I think I read. So, I mean, Fargo's great at having great casts.
Yeah.
There's not a single bad Fargo anything, as best I can.
Not yet. And I hope there never will be. Finally, a bunch of other little bits and bobs here. Tiffany Haddish's new movie, Landscape with Invisible Hand, is coming out Friday to theaters. It's about aliens who invade Earth and entertain themselves by live streaming the lives of individual humans. The humans sign up for it and get paid. Amazon canceled its order for season 2 of The Peripheral, based on the William Gibson story, and season 2 of A League of Their Own, saying the strike made them untenable. The Flash is coming to Max if you want to stream it online. That starts August 25th. And finally, Disney announced it's releasing The Mandalorian, Loki, and WandaVision on Blu-ray later this year. These are the first of its streaming shows to come to disc.
How do we feel about physical media in this age where like there are current theatrical releases that have
we
minor...
already have the email from the person.
So Ryan,
who
I
loves
point you to
Blu-ray.
my 5 Blu-rays of Scott Pilgrim. I'm a big physical media guy. I have tons and tons of Blu-rays and a handful of vinyls. So I like this, and I hope that it is resetting a trend. There was recently they stopped. Disney, I think, didn't do physical media release for. I forget what movie it was, but one of their recent releases, maybe it was even Guardians 3, in Australia and New Zealand. And there was a concern amongst physical media fans like myself that was the signal of a new trend. But if they're releasing Disney Plus shows on physical media, then that could be... Netflix used to release. Netflix had the first 2 seasons of Stranger Things, like the first season of Daredevil, a bunch of like Netflix stuff from 2014-15 was on physical media, and then they stopped doing it as well. So
I believe
I personally
those
am hoping
were
this is a new
things
trend.
Netflix didn't own all the rights to. And
That's
so
true.
the
Yeah.
production companies were able to do the DVD releases.
So some of it was, but I think like Stranger Things and House of Cards, They did.
House of Cards, it was definitely the production company did it. I don't know about Stranger Things though.
Yeah, I don't remember for sure, but there was also like, because it wasn't every season, so I think part of it was Netflix as well, because the first like season or two of Jessica Jones were, and then after that they weren't. So and so like when those shows were off Netflix and before they were on Disney Plus, you couldn't get them anywhere legally, and so I don't know if that's why Disney's I doubt it. I mean, I think these are Mandalorian, Loki, WandaVision, those are shows that collectors will buy any sort of physical release of. So that's probably like, hey, Star Wars fans, buy this extra Star Wars thing that doesn't cost us that much to make.
Yeah, it definitely smart to take advantage of the collector mentality. Be smart if they did inclusions, little fun things in there along with the discs. All right, let's talk about what we've had our eyes on. Naaim, what have you been watching?
Yeah, there is a YouTube and Nebula show called Jet Lag the Game. If you've ever watched Wendover Productions on YouTube or Half as Interesting, it's that team. It's sort of an Amazing Race style show where these three guys and usually they have a guest as well. Travel to various locations and they play some sort of game. So like either they're circumnavigating across the globe or they're playing tag across Europe. The most recent season they played Capture the Flag in Japan, and it's really cool. They're using these a big part of it is using public transit networks to do something that they're not designed for. So for example, for the Capture the Flag one, they are traveling up and down Japan and have to, play this game on this board map that's not designed for it. It's a lot of fun. It's a fun sort of game show type experience. It's like I said, it's on YouTube with episodes a week earlier on Nebula, and check it out. And this is my official. If anybody from Nebula or one of the Jet Lag guys is watching this is my official plea to be on the show. Have me on a season.
It's an application.
I'll be great.
It's not just a recommendation. It's also
not just a recommendation. The application. Yeah, no. There's a very rabid Jet Lag fan base. So if anybody has watched Jet Lag, they're probably commenting in the chat right now how excited they are to talk about Jet Lag.
And that's on YouTube.
It's on YouTube. Yeah, they episodes are a week early on Nebula, but it is you can watch every episode on YouTube right now.
All right, Brian, what have you been doing with your eyes?
So Penny went back to college. Bonnie had to take her. Josie went to a convention, stayed overnight. And all of a sudden, I was in charge of just Callie. And Callie was like, what are we going to watch? And so we watched Watership Down. And she was confused why 30 minutes from the end of the movie, her dad was crying. But then she was like, is there anything else you want to watch? And I was like, I don't know. Let's watch Lower Decks. And she goes, what is it? I'm like, let's find out. And it was fascinating to see Callie at the age of 10, who doesn't know nothing about no Star Trek, nothing, just unironically experiencing classic Star Trekkiness, and she could not get enough of it. We binged the entire first season, and I know as soon as I get home, she's going to want to watch one more, and it's just really a testimony to how much of the heart of that show they were able to keep alive. It's not one that requires you to be in on the joke on anything, as we discovered when we talked it out with Bryce, who was unfamiliar with a lot of the stuff beforehand.
Yeah, I love that. I love that Callie is now going to watch Star Trek, the original series, or Next Generation someday and go, oh, that's that thing Mariner was talking about. Like that will be the lens through which she sees it. That's just wonderful. I love that so much.
I similarly have very little experience with Star Trek, but all of my Star Trek friends are like, just check out Lower Decks. You'll like Lower Decks. I'm like, okay, I have Paramount Plus. There's nothing stopping me from checking it out.
Yeah.
Well, and plus also, like, when there's moments that maybe they are specific references to old series or whatever, they're also universal tropes that you could be all like, oh, they're doing that thing that I'm familiar with,
Yeah,
so
I also have a lot of Star Trek knowledge for somebody who's never seen Star Trek. It's just like,
you just
through
gotta
osmosis.
pick it up, right?
But
yeah.
Well, I want to give a shout out for Only Murders in the Building, which is back on Hulu, and I would call it the comfiest thing I watch. Watching these episodes, it is the definition of a comfort watch, the definition of a cozy mystery, especially now that they're in their third season. So you know the main characters very well, and you're like happy to see them again, like catching up with old friends. They've brought in Paul Rudd, who's playing a guy who plays a lesser known superhero called Cobra, but he's acting on Broadway to bolster his career credit. They also have another like superstar involved in this, which if you haven't seen the trailers yet, you don't know. And it's just crazy that they got someone of her caliber to join. I don't know. I love it. It's not for everybody, but they're short. They're half hour or less. It's a light little murder mystery that, you know, a lot of you are probably going to guess it really early, but it's well told and it's fun. And maybe the fact that they're podcasters is part of it as well.
You know, I love Early Murders as well. It was day one. I mean, that came out in 2020, like late 2021, that first season. So it was definitely a time where
you needed
it was nice comfort food. And yeah, I feel totally the same way. It's Steve Martin and Martin Short, and also Selena Gomez. But like, and they make a great comedy trio. But obviously, Steve Martin and Martin Short are like such a classic duo of comedy. And actually, Brian had in here that he'd been watching The After Party as well, which is another, you know, light-ish murder mystery comedy that's on Apple TV Plus that I've also like a big fan of and really been enjoying, and another show with a great ensemble cast. So it's a great time to be a fan of murder mystery comedies specifically.
Yeah. If you love to laugh at people dying, good times.
Zach Woods is very funny as the dead guy in The After Party.
All right, Bryce, what should we be on the lookout for?
Hey, I got a pick for you guys. I ended up watching this over the weekend. Okay, so we've talked about Bryce slicing on the Great Night podcast before. Sometimes I will just want to watch the end of a show. I don't want to get through all that. I don't want to sit through all of your junk. Just let me get to the end of it. And I tried that with this show, and it failed. The slice failed.
Really?
I'm talking about Netflix's recent drama, The Chosen One. This is a Spanish language supernatural drama. It's about a teenage boy in Mexico who discovers he has Christ-like powers, and it becomes a big deal. This is not like does he have power? Does he not? Like he heals a deaf man, like a blind kid can see. People come back to life, and there's a lot of both. There's good drama and good tension with the sort of whirlwind that comes around this kid. But I also think it manages to tell the story really expediently. These are 6 40-minute episodes, so you are not sitting around for a long time. And because the season is paced so quickly, that means that when the episodes do linger a little bit and really try to get a little more atmospheric or spend time in the environment, it doesn't feel like a slog. It feels like, oh, okay, we're going to take a minute here and try to feel the emotion of this. And I went from wanting to just watch the end and spoiling myself on one of the big things of the show to binging the entire thing in basically one day. So.
I mean, that you described it as a fail, but that sounds like a success. Well, it sounds like.
Well, I succeeded. My watching was succeeded. The slicing concept failed a little.
Sounds like they defeated the Bryce slice is what they did.
Yeah, exactly. Which is good. You know what? Those are good problems to have.
They parried.
Yeah. Everybody wins.
Yeah. So that's The Chosen One on Netflix. This is different from the Brazilian series called The Chosen One. There are 6 episodes. It's streaming now. If you got something we should be on the lookout for, please email it to us. That email address is cordkillers@gmail.com. Thank you.
So, Brian, I have a question.
Yeah.
If I go to doghousesystems.com/rogue, what happens?
Well, I mean, first of all, a website will load for you and you'll see a picture and you'll be told that if you use promo code ROGUE at checkout, ROGUE, you'll get a free extra SSD drive. But what you really will be doing is keeping us loud, live, and independent and in business because all of our systems are borrowed from Doghouse Systems. We owe them a life debt. Help us work off our life debt. Keep this show going right now by going to doghousesystems.com/rogue.
Help us, folks. We need your help. Anything else, Brian, that you would like the listeners' help with?
We just got back from DEF CON. We're going to have lots of stories that we'll share on another program. But the big one is we are, Vox Tempest is coming. If you could find it, great. If not, that's fine. We're about to be very loud. We're about to start shipping out 250 per week. But Vox Tempest is a very, very fine puzzle box experience.
It's a puzzle box
that becomes an ARG. Yeah.
Oh,
Ooh, that sounds amazing. All right, folks, check it out. Scam stuff. Let's move on to the front lines.
Front lines.
I once met an analyst called Dan Ives from Wedbush Securities who wrote an opinion piece arguing that Apple should buy ESPN from Disney. This opinion piece assumes a lot of things. That Disney wants to sell ESPN, because I'm not sure it does. Bob Iger has said he's looking for strategic partners, which fairly is often code for I want to sell something, but it sounded more like he meant for the broadcast and cable parts of ESPN rather than the streaming part. Also, Apple probably doesn't want that. But for now, just putting it on your radar that the establishment seems to have moved, or is at least moving, from Apple should buy Netflix to Apple should buy ESPN.
I just don't see it at all. It just sounds like crazy talk. Kuhan, what's that?
I mean, I agree with like the strategic partnership, like I mentioned earlier, right? The MLS thing that Apple they're moving into a space like that, but I also don't necessarily think they want to buy ESPN outright. That I don't like doesn't seem like a thing that they'd be interested in.
Yeah, I feel like what I'm guessing Iger means is he'd like somebody like Sinclair or Tribune, whatever it's called these days, to buy the rights to broadcast ESPN's content on cable and over the air. And then ESPN will keep making the content, stream it, and make all that money.
The fascinating thing is ESPN used to be the only thing that made money at Disney. And now they're like, we got to figure something out with this thing because it's not making the cash cow that it used to make.
I'll tell you what is making money. Barbie has now made $537.5 million domestically, more money than The Dark Knight, making it Warner Brothers' highest grossing domestic film ever. It's close to Super Mario Brothers movies, $574 million, damning with faint praise, which was the highest grossing domestic movie this year. Dare I ask, gentlemen, can we please plan on there being a summer movie draft this next year?
I'll tell you what. So I've mentioned on the show before, I do a summer movie draft with my friends, and I did it this year, and it went well. There were some obvious, like, the largely was down, but for the most part, I think it's time. I think it's time to bring the movie draft back.
Let's make it.
And this is my application to be on next year too, by the way. I want to be on the movie draft. I want to be on Jet Lag. I want any show you want to have me, call me.
Let's make it part of the SAG-AFTRA negotiations that Naaim gets to be on the movie draft, which will happen next summer.
Perfect. Agreed.
Motion carried.
After
in
call
April, Netflix announced the end of its DVD My Mail service, and now Netflix is letting subscribers opt in to a final surprise or finale surprise. You have to agree to it, so you have to opt in. But if you do, Netflix will send you 10 random discs on September 29th that you will not need to return. That is the last day that they are shipping out the discs. They will accept DVD returns until October 27th if you want to return your discs.
This is adorable, partly because they're literally saying, we have garbage. Would you like our garbage? Thank you for taking our garbage so we don't have to buy a shipping container.
One person's garbage is another person's eventual garbage.
Here's my 5 Blu-rays of Scott Pilgrim vs. the World.
But at least they have cases.
They do have cases. I do really like cases. I would not do this because they don't have cases. So it's true. But there are people, and there's people who put DVDs in a binder. I don't get it, but like there's still people who do that, and that's the Venn diagram of the kind of people who do that and the kind of people who still get DVDs off of Netflix. It's probably a pretty good Venn diagram.
There might be a lot of overlap. That's a good point. Yeah.
I suspect it's mostly just nostalgia, but at any rate, Apple released some stills from its monster series it's producing with Legendary Entertainment around the characters of King Kong and Godzilla. It will be a 10-episode series called Monarch: Legacy of the Monsters, and take place after the events of the 2014 Godzilla film, as well as a storyline set in the 1950s. Kurt Russell and Wyatt Russell will play the character of Li Shi in the different timelines. The show's being co-developed by Severance producer Chris Black and Matt Fraction of Hawkeye. Man, that is a roller coaster of a sentence to say, because I get very optimistic and then I get very pessimistic, and then I get very optimistic and then very pessimistic.
Yeah. I love casting double Russells though for the flashback and the modern one. That's cool.
I liked Kong Skull Island. I haven't seen Godzilla vs. Kong yet, but I heard it was good. Like, on paper, there's certainly something to like here. I'll probably wait for reviews of the first 3 episodes before checking it out, but it's like definitely seems like it could be promising.
And it's Apple. Apple's got a decent track record. Doesn't mean they're infallible or anything.
So if it's a 10-episode series called Monarch, I mean, is that a wink and a nod, like it's going to be Mothra is going to be the...
No, Monarch is the name of the exploration. Like Monarch has been recurring through those movies.
Okay, got it.
NBC added multiple channels to Roku's FAST service, including dedicated channels for Murder, She Wrote, Little House on the Prairie, Saved by the Bell, and Bad Girls Club. A Universal Crime channel offers rotating reruns of Columbo, Kojak, and The Rockford Files. And there are some teen-oriented channels like Punky Brewster, Major Dad, and Hang Time filling up that channel there. So more growth in the free ad-supported television space.
What a weird mix of things. Punky Brewster and Bad Girls Club. Like,
it's that teen NBC channel.
I do want to see Punky Brewster and Columbo back to back. That would be awesome. That'd be a great double. Like,
oh man, give AI 20 minutes and we're gonna have all
Punky Brewster in Columbo. Can we put Punky Brewster in? If we're
those are
going
on
AI,
different channels. Just to be clear, Columbo's on the Universal Crime channel.
Now.
Punky Brewster, but you can watch them back to back.
I mean, on NBC, like on actual NBC, the way it was when we were all young, and still technically is like that, and just nobody watches it anymore. That's the way it was. You would watch on Thursday nights. You would watch 4 comedies and then ER. Yeah, I'm fine with that. Actually, that's kind of like what I like.
Amazon updated its Fire TV channel's Fast app with a sidebar that breaks out available shows into categories and added more shows from its more than 400 providers.
Fast is the way. Fast is the future.
Oh, but the
ads. Fast and Furious.
Fast make Brian furious.
Fast make Brian furious. Yeah, I agree. No, that tracks.
Let's get to the dispatches from the front. James Thatcher, good old Big Jim, writes, you brought up an interesting point on this last episode about how cinema might be for the big budget Marvel movies and the comedies would be in that TV line because it's not a big budget thing. This reminds me, I think in the first season of Cordkillers, when it was Steven Spielberg who said that people would only be going to the movies for big budget tentpoles and everything else would not be in theaters. Coming true. And at the time, I think a lot of people didn't take the sage advice. Just my 2 cents.
I would like to believe, and somebody can throw it in our faces if we're wrong, but I would like to believe that we agreed with the sentiment at the time, is make the tentpole experience fundamentally different.
Yes, we were the ones with the sage advice.
I think part of the issue has been that comedies more recently have been the kind of thing you would throw on television and not like... there's been less of that like interesting filmmaking in comedies. They're just shot like TV shows. And listen, I didn't mean to do this bit 4 different times, but Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Oh my God.
I truly didn't mean to. But like, visual stylings like Edgar Wright's and like movies like that, you don't really see as much of anymore. It's a lot more of just like a shot reverse shot. So why not just, if you're gonna pay $10 million to make it, why not just also toss it on Max?
Yeah. I mean, it's a little bit of a chicken the egg thing. It's like, well, then, or you're not going to get the comedy people going to watch the comedies if you don't create interesting comedies, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that's what happened is in 2009 or 10 or whatever, like there was a push towards less interesting comedies. And then they were like, all right, we can push these to streaming. So it just kind of happened slowly.
When the NFL season started last year, writes Adam in San Diego, I subscribed to Sling TV Blue, because it had NFL Network and the Red Zone as add-ons, and I figured I'd give the live channels a try. But Blue, while it had NFL Network and Red Zone, did not have ESPN, which is where the tennis was that I wanted to watch. That was only on Orange, so I couldn't watch both NFL and tennis, which are often at the same days and times. Now, Sling does at least let you switch between Blue and Orange at any time, but that meant I had to go into my Sling account and switch from Orange to Blue to watch NFL, then switch back to Orange to watch tennis.
Ridiculous.
Then back again, sometimes in the same day. Also, Orange limits you to streaming on one device, while Blue allows you up to 3 screens.
It doesn't
So when
make
I
sense.
switched to Orange for tennis, nobody else could watch anything on Sling. Paying for both Orange and Blue wasn't worth it, and constantly switching plus the weird device rules was a pain, so I canceled.
You know what? I don't feel so bad talking last week a little bit out of my butt about Sling being weird. This is still a weird way to sell TV.
It's a really weird way.
There are few people who understand this stuff better than the people on this show and the people who watch this show. And this is confusing. Like, the fact that it's confusing to us is a real problem.
I mean, what it reminds me of is the opening scene to Poltergeist, where 2 people have the same type of clicker, and they're in the middle of watching the game, and then somebody clicks the remote control on their side of the house, and all of a sudden it's a kid's show, and then they're like, "Hey, buddy, we're kind of all here watching the game," and then they click to what's old is new again.
Yeah. It's just slower than it used to be in Poltergeist times. Finally, Maurice writes, in response to your over-the-air television discussion, I actually still use it because it's simply quicker and less hassle than using the apps. Tuning to the over-the-air station takes less than 2 seconds. Firing up the appropriate app and navigating to the live broadcast takes closer to 30. And that's not counting the time it takes to reconfirm my cable login, which happens once or twice a week. If you have a cable login, why are
The
you
app
watching
is
over
slow. The app is slower. It's slower than tuning.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
But he's got cable, not...
And the cable box is slow. My parents got a slow cable box.
Sometimes you want to use a cable login to watch NBC, or CBS.
But then you have to switch back and forth between cable and broadcast on the television inputs.
That's one button, Tom.
Tom, Tom, we're not yucking anyone's watching yums. All right. This is how OTA people want to watch their stuff, Tom.
That's the way we used to have to switch between the PS4 and the Chromecast. It's the same kind of concept.
That's the pain that they accepted.
It's one button. It's not that big a deal. It's not even a button for me. I tell Google to do it.
Yeah, everything changes when you think there's a tornado. Like, all of a sudden, OTA is king, and then you just want to turn on the TV.
But they still have cable and TV.
Bryce, we're not here to yuck anyone's yum.
End the show.
Naaim Siddiqi, thank you so much for being with us. Let folks find out where they can follow your great stuff on the internet these days.
Yeah, you can find all my stuff at iamkuhan.com. That's just the catch-all place to go. I had a hack issue a couple of months ago, so it should be fine now, I think. But the thing that I do, look at that. It does work. That's great. The thing I do most regularly is called Rain Delay Radio. It's the wrong image on there right now, but it's fine. Rain Delay Radio is a podcast about baseball. RainDelayRadio.com is where you go if you want to hear me and some other folks talk about baseball every week. It's great. Mason Wynn is up in the majors. It's it's the only thing to hold on to, Tom.
At this point. Yep.
Yeah.
Indeed. Well, there's always 1979.
Always next year.
Our website is cordkillers.com. Our email address is cordkillers@gmail.com. We are live at twitch.tv/Night Attack Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. We'll talk to you then.
Hey, Tom Merritt, what's going on?
I'm just hanging out here watching this scroll go by. What are you doing?
Trying to set up a bit where we thank our beautiful, beautiful patrons, all these wonderful
names. I'm sorry,
names.
I'm too distracted looking at these beautiful, beautiful patron names going by. Look at that one. I mean, if you wanted to be one of these people, patreon.com/cordkillers would be the place to go.
I mean, they're scratching our itch, like, because we're addicted.
As long as it's consensual, like,
we're addicted to their money.
And love. Might as well face it.
Well, God damn it.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.